Robertson's here, head of features at The Sun. Colin, very good morning to you.
Morning.
You were kind enough to run a piece of mine in the paper today.
Very good piece.
On page 10. Basically, really as a reaction to what people had said to me yesterday on the show, because people yesterday were so annoyed about this Afghan crisis, this Afghan blunder and cover-up and superinjunction and all of that, that they were starting to say to me, isn't it time we had an election? You know, and now, because of your page 1, the £1 billion compensation scheme, they're even more angry.
Well, this is the thing. I mean, I heard your monologue yesterday,
Yeah.
and I thought to myself, that is going to, you know, strike a chord with people.
Yeah.
People are furious at the moment because every day we're waking up to a bit. You know, how many billions are we going to be paying for something that is completely out of our hands,
for which we get no benefit?
There's
really.
not in our interest.
No.
That's the thing. I mean, actually, when this story broke, you remember the story that was happening at the same time. Was the over a million migrants and foreign nationals claiming benefits,
claiming universal credit,
and that got bumped to the side because there's an even bigger bill coming our way.
It was extraordinary because that was, I mean, that was the big story we thought was going to be the lead story for the whole week. In fact, and it's sort of been pushed slightly back to the side because this scandal is so huge. But what I find amazing is, apart from you guys and us, quite a lot of the other media are not really treating it as if it's the biggest story of the year, which it obviously is. Well,
I mean, this is the thing, isn't it? A lot of the time, you're on this show, and us at The Sun as well. We're hearing from real people all the time. People who are affected by this stuff. If you live in a sort of a high castle, then you look down this and say, "Oh, isn't it dreadful?" But actually, if you're living and breathing it, you've had people on, and you say in your column, you've got somebody who's bought £500,000 home, and they've saved up all their money, and then here we are, great, we've bought this £500,000 home, we're moving in, and then there's a family of, they think it's Afghans who've moved in around the corner into a similar home that they're getting for free, and then getting everything else for free, and it makes you incredibly angry, incredibly frustrated, because you think to yourself, well, it happens all the time. I'm like, oh, I need to get my son some physiotherapy. But I think to myself, well, that's a waste of time. I'm going to have to dig into the savings and take him private. Why? Because there's this gigantic queue for absolutely everything. Every benefit going, there's a massive queue, huge waiting lists, and people are getting sick and tired of that. And then more and more people come into the country. And look, of course, we're a welcoming nation. We welcome and we appreciate.
Look where it's got us, though.
Exactly. This is the problem: is that we will welcome people in, but people's patience is being tested on a daily basis by lots of people coming in, and the government is sort of not helping normal people, but seem to be prioritising the other people that are coming in, and that's where the frustration lies. We are, lots of people sort of say, oh, there's, you hate migrants, it's racism, you're anti-refugee. No, that's not true.
No.
We are a compassionate country, and as I say, lots of the people involved in this Afghan business helped us. And so we owe them. We owe them.
Right. But the problem with that is the number, isn't it? Because I keep talking to people who say, yes, there were 12,000 troops over a period of 10 years or something in Afghanistan, right? But over that, how do you get from that to saying, oh, there's 18,500 people that have to then come into Britain? Because there couldn't be that many people helping us. That's the worry, that an awful lot of these people actually weren't helping us at all.
Well, I think that's the issue, isn't it? You've got to do the due diligence on that. But while the due diligence was supposed to be being done on that, somebody went bonk and actually sent that email out and thought, oh, Christ, that database has gone out. It's now out to the four winds. It's some Afghan people got it, it's passed on to and then it ends up on Facebook. So by then, you're trying to get the genie back into the bottle. Where you could have done some proper due diligence on that and said, well, actually, there's a few thousand here. They're most at risk. They're the ones who really did help us, and a lot of them are coming in anyway under the resettlement scheme. But I think we're okay with that. And as it's been shown, the government has admitted actually that there was probably not, they weren't as at risk as we might have thought they were.
No, exactly, because they're still talking about bringing some in who have been living presumably in Afghanistan for quite some years, and nobody's killed them. I mean, I don't want to be glib about it, but the fact is that, if they were in that much danger, surely they wouldn't be still where they are. And the other problem that people have got is, and it's a huge freedom of the press issue, is this superinjunction, because I think people have found the most galling news about this whole story is that the Tories tried to make it so that we'd never find out about it.
Yeah, exactly. And what's been going on with this? I mean, super injunctions have become a sort of a phenomenon.
Yeah.
I remember writing about them sort of 15 years ago when they sort of. I mean, at
Ryan Giggs and all that.
Ryan Giggs. At one point, we thought, how many of these things are out there? I appeared in the paper as super injunction man, and I had this. I was holding up this phone and said, do you know about a super injunction? Call me and find out. And the phone did ring.
Right.
They weren't all super injunctions, but you didn't think that the government would start using.
No.
This was the sort of like slippery customers. Big business was using them to hide all sorts of dodgy things they'd done. You know, dodgy celebs who'd been up to no good. I mean, I think Andrew Marr had one at one point.
Yeah.
And then he basically put his hands up and said, what on earth was I playing at?
Yeah,
you know? But the idea that the government is using them, and the government, this is the first, as we understand, this is the first time that the government has used a superinjunction. But they're not ruling out using them
well,
again.
I was going to say, hopefully it's the only one, but we don't know.
But if we did, we couldn't talk about it right now.
Exactly right. And I think it's the lack of trust. I mean, just before you came in, that final voice note that I played from one of our regulars, actually, from Mark, and he basically said, you know, the whole trust has gone between the voters and the politicians now, because they've proven themselves to just be self-serving, to want us not to know the truth, and now we've got the evidence of it.
Yeah, and this is about the government saying, well, we don't think we can trust you with this information. We don't, you know, we leave it to us in this sort of like we know best society. And people don't like that.
No.
And actually, if you get the information out there, look, if they'd said, look, I understand that actually when Ben Wallace this first came across his desk, he panicked and thought, oh my God, this is a big deal. Let's put an injunction on this.
Shut it down.
Let's just shut it down while we work out what the problem is.
Yeah.
But then they increase the problem by creating a super injunction, so on and so on and so forth. And we got a million miles away from the actual problem itself. If that had come out, and a few months later, we would have reported it, you'd have been speaking about it on this show, the public would have gone, good God, what a hell of a blunder this is. Right. This is ridiculous, blah, 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 but we understand why.
But
people make mistakes.
And they would have said, yes, it's very important that we make sure that the people that helped Britain in that time get rescued and get brought here. I don't think anyone would have had a problem with that. But because of the way it's been done, and we now know, because even John Healey, I think, has admitted that of the 18,500, quite a lot of them shouldn't actually be here. No. They've been brought in sort of in a cache, and now you can't get rid of them. You can't suddenly go knocking on the door and go, this free house we've given you, would you mind if we just take it back now, because apparently you have to go back to Afghanistan? It's not going to happen, is it?
No, of course it's not going to happen. And this is the thing, you know, I know people make decisions and they've made the wrong decisions here, but lots of very senior people have made terrible decisions. Yeah. And that's what frustrates people. Yeah. They think, well, who is making a good decision? Right. There's no one making a good decision. Right. And if no one's making a good decision, let's get rid of them.
Exactly.
And to your point, let's have a general election. Yeah. Let's get somebody else in. Let's give someone else a go.
And also, it was about, I don't know what sort of reaction you've had from it today, but in terms of what I wanted to say was that people want to get their country back. You know, you hear that quite a lot. They talk about fairness. They talk about, you know, working hard and not getting anything for it, just being punished by the government, while other people, and plenty of homegrown scroungers as well who are on benefits, who just don't do anything at all for the economy, and we're sort of subsidising all of it. And people just want to take the control back, I think, of the government, because they feel as if it's just running out of control, telling them lies every day, and just making fun of them.
Absolutely,
really?
And I think people are incredibly frustrated. As I say, you wake up every day to say, what am I going to have to pay more for today? Yeah. And what service is going to be buckling under the strain that I can't use? Yeah. So you sort of think, if I'm ill, forget it. Right. You know, get in the queue. Yes, unless you're at death's door, you're probably not going to be seen. Right. And then your council tax is going up, and they won't fix the roads. They won't collect the bins if you live in Birmingham. No. So all these problems keep coming. They're piling on top of each other, and the people there's a sort of howl of rage there. Yeah. What do? Yeah. You know, you voted in Labour to fix these, and we're going to fix this as a matter of urgency. Yeah. You remember the speech, Keir Starmer, outside Number 10. You thought, OK, take a deep breath. We've got someone sensible in charge now, because the Tories.
Well, he was supposed to be the grown-up, wasn't he?
Exactly, and so right, we're going to come in, we're going to sort out all the mess, and that's effectively what he said. Yeah. And it's just made it worse.
Yeah. I mean, it's inevitable. And the economy this morning, we're talking about unemployment's increased, regular earnings growth has decreased, it's gone down, 178,000 people, fewer are now on the payroll. You know, all the indicators are making it worse to live in this country than it was when Labour got in. And that wasn't meant to be the plan.
No, and that is incredibly frustrating. And this is a thing I often rail against, is this idea of like doing down Britain. Yeah. I hate to do down Britain. Right. I think Britain is brilliant. I think Brits are amazing. It's a great country. Love this country. Yeah. Love the people in this country. But my God, they're being dealt a really poor hand. And that's the frustration, is that we are a great nation. We're the funniest nation. We're the most talented nation on earth. Right. But we're being let down by the nuts and bolts. Yeah. And we just don't know where to turn. Yeah,
and I think that's the problem. It's frustration. People just feel terrible frustration. And this, as I say, this is the final straw, that these people that we have rescued, whether they deserved it or not, are now going to sue us because they want a couple of 100,000 each
Exactly.
because we didn't.
You've got enterprising lawyers at Barings who come out saying, yes, we're thinking we're going to get 5-figure sums for these people.
Yeah.
And you think, well, I mean, you can't blame them because they could say, well, I can get some money out of this, so I'll go for it.
Right.
But look at it's incredibly frustrating.
It's absolutely
and as you say, it just adds more misery on top of more misery, and it tests our compassion. And that's what's always terrible about these things. It's a test our compassion.
Yeah.
So as I say, we are a welcoming nation. We're quite happy to welcome people who have helped us, and we're quite happy to welcome in,
but we're now welcoming just pretty much anybody, and they're quite often not helping us. If anything, they're hindering us, and